What is going on, FA Nation? James Grande here alongside Adam Ronis. Adam, it is the return of the best sport on the planet. Just kidding, not really. The NBA is back. We have live bubble action. Adam, thanks for joining us on the FA Sports Talk. What's going on, man? You happy to have the NBA back, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. It's one of my favorite sports for DFS and sports betting. So, I'm happy baseball is back too. Been watching baseball like all day the last few days. Have it on in the background while I'm working and watching the games late at night. Was up watching all the West Coast games last night. So I'm happy about that. And then we get a couple NBA games tonight, and then all day tomorrow and the next few days for the next couple weeks. So yeah, I'm definitely happy it's back.
Nothing like listening to fake MLB fans every time the bat cracks in the MLB. I think it's been a weird beginning of the season, but it is great to have back, and it is great background noise. Two games on the NBA slate tonight in the bubble. They are TNT games, of course. We have Utah, New Orleans opening up the season, and we have the Clippers and the Lakers in the nightcap. Let's just start, I guess, where a lot of the money is going to go tonight, and that's DFS. Primarily FanDuel, because they are shipping out a pretty large contest, the $3 million shot, and it is $1 million to first. There is a massive overlay right now. There is approximately half the field filled, which is pretty good odds to maybe win a couple dollars, probably not a million, but you never know with the content that we provide here at Fantasy Alarm. So, I mean, Adam, what are your thoughts on this two-gamer? I mean, two-gamers are definitely tough because the player pool is condensed. There is a lot of question marks going into this two-game slate, a lot of question marks on playing time, a lot of question marks on who's actually playing. What's your assessment on this two-game slate as a whole? Maybe some of your favorite plays from each position.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's very challenging because we just don't know what the minutes are going to be for each player. It's just the restart here, and it's going to be tough to figure out. Usually in March we have a good idea. We know towards the end some teams will rest, but that's what we're trying to figure out right now. Because really the Lakers, they're going to lock up the number one seed, especially if they win tonight. They're going to be in good shape. So how do they approach this with LeBron James? I'm sure LeBron wants to play and get his minutes up, but what's going to happen after 4 or 5 games? Anthony Davis on the injury report, so it's like we're in the middle of the year. So it hasn't been that bad this year. He has this eye issue. Sounds like he's going to play. But that's the key here is trying to figure out what the minutes are going to be, because that's one of the most important factors in DFS. Obviously, the more minutes you play, the more opportunity you have to pile up fantasy points. So that's really the key right now is trying to figure it out. And if you're really shooting for that big prize, I mean, I think you can't be afraid to leave a lot of salary on the table. It's very difficult to do, but you need to do something to differentiate yourself. If you're going to max out and have no money left, chances are a lot of people have that similar lineup. So it's a lot of the two-game slates is game theory and trying to be different. And it can be difficult to do because you feel like, oh, I can't leave it on the table, but that's kind of what you have to do if you really want to differentiate yourself.
And what are some of the ways you would differentiate yourself? We know, let's just take the Clippers and the Pelicans, for example. If Zion doesn't play, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of the same construction, right? Because when Zion doesn't play, we know that you play Brandon Ingram, and that's why he's an all-star. We know you play Drew Holiday. For the Clippers, there's no big men. So, would you deploy Joakim Noah in your DFS lineup? Zubac is back, but there's no Montrezl Harrell. Would you deploy, let's say, a Landry Shamet or something to differentiate yourself from the pack?
Yeah, I think you have to take all those guys into consideration. It's crazy that we're even talking about Noah, but he's probably going to – I think he probably plays 15 to 20 minutes. They're going to need size against the Lakers. Zubac, we've seen he's very productive, but how many minutes is he going to play? Remember, he had COVID-19. He can still be good in 20 to 24 minutes, but you got to think Noah's going to play a little bit. I mean, I know they have JaMychal Green as well, and that's what we're trying to figure out. If we know that Noah's going to get 20 minutes, then yeah, 3,800 on. See, FanDuel at center, right? You don't want to pay up 8,200, I think, for Rudy Gobert. He's a way better play on DraftKings at 7,100, where you get the double-double, you can get some blocks, and it's a high-paced game. But I don't think you feel good about playing Gobert at 8,200 on FanDuel. Then you got Derek Favors at 5,400. You don't feel great about him if Zion is playing. Zubac, I think, will probably be popular then. I don't think many people are going to play McGee or Howard, but I can understand that. So maybe you do save some money and go with Noah, because I think some people probably, the casual player is not going to even consider him. They probably don't even realize that he might play tonight, right? Because he hasn't played all year. They'll go to the game log and be like, oh, he's got 0. Okay, so he's not even playing.
If you were to, let's just rank those 3 guys that you mentioned, Noah, Zubac, JaMychal. I know JaMychal is not a center. He's only a power forward on both sites. But if you were to rank the 3 based on your favorite for DFS tonight, how would you rank them?
Would be Zubac, Noah, Green.
Let's talk about the Lakers side, because Anthony Davis is obviously the question mark. He's planning to play, but he's currently still listed as questionable. If he doesn't, it's lock LeBron, lock Kuzma, right? But after that, do we have any interest in any of the other Lakers? Does Markieff become interesting with Anthony Davis out, or are you trending towards McGee Howard side? How would you approach the Lakers if Anthony Davis is out?
I would probably definitely lock in LeBron, Kuzma for sure, and I might look at those guards. I think Danny Green is a good play tonight. 3,500 on DraftKings, because he easily could do nothing, right? We've seen it before. But I think he can also win you a GPP. He's going to probably take more shots. We know Rajon Rondo is out. Avery Bradley's out. So that I think it's going to help Green. And, he's a guy that can hit you 4 or 5 threes if he gets hot. So he would be a guy that I look at. Contavious Caldwell-Pope's another guy, too, that can get hot with some playing time. And on FanDuel, I would consider Alex Caruso at point guard, because he is cheap. And you got to start 2 point guards there. So, that's the thing. I think Anthony Davis plays. My guess is he's going to play. And I think if he does play, he's one of the best plays on the slate tonight. He's done well against the Clippers this year. And the Clippers, have the ability to at least give LeBron some problems with George and Kawhi guarding him. The Clippers don't really have an answer for Anthony Davis. So he would be the spend up for me between him and LeBron.
I completely agree. Over under 10 minutes on JR and Dion Waiters.
I'm going to take the under. Again, that's the wild card, too. I know Waiters showed a little bit. I think J.R. Smith had 1 decent game in the scrimmage, but I can't see them doing much here tonight unless it's a blowout.
Since that was the more appealing game, let's switch over to the Jazz Pelicans real quick. Do you think Zion plays? I guess that is the key. He did take part in the shoot around, but nobody knows if he's going to play. Do you lean one way or the other? Do you think Zion plays? Do you think he sits? What's your opinion on that?
I think he plays. My concern is how many minutes. Look, this is a playoff game for them. They have no margin for error. They're 3.5 games behind the Grizzlies. They have a very favorable schedule as well. I could see them going 7-1. Everyone jumped on their bandwagon, and I was like, all right, why are we sleeping on Portland here? But then the schedules came out, and I was like, man, the Pelicans got a huge break. This schedule is so favorable for them. Portland's got a really difficult schedule. I think Portland would present more of a scare for the Lakers. I know everyone thinks I guess because of Zion, he's such a draw, and TV obviously. It's not and the Pelicans are fun. Don't get me wrong. They're a fun team to watch. They don't really play defense. Very high-paced games. The Jazz in them this year have had some very high-scoring games.
Right.
But we see that the number has been climbing in the over/under. I think it's up to, is it 223? I haven't checked lately.
It's 228. It's 228, and New Orleans is actually now favored.
Last week.
And New Orleans is favored by 2, for the record. And it opened at 222.5, and Utah was 1.5 point favorite. So that looks like Zion's playing to me. If there was any indication, Vegas knows something that we don't, and it's Zion playing.
Yeah, I think he does play. It's just now a matter of how many minutes, and I think he'll be a popular play. I like him better on FanDuel. I don't know about DraftKings, and especially since you want to be different with yourself. But, you look at that power forward spot on FanDuel and you got almost everyone's going to play Anthony Davis.
Right.
So yeah, if you do if you put multiple lineups in, you probably do want to do a couple without Anthony Davis, which is scary because if Davis does play, 30 to 33 minutes, he should crush. But I mean, look at your options here. Well, you got to start 2 power forwards. I mean, most people are going to play Zion. After that, I mean, are you going to play Royce O'Neal at 4,900? I mean, I don't think many people will do that. I mean, we've seen this guy play 30 minutes and do nothing. I mean, Kuzma you can go to. There's just not much at the power forward position on FanDuel.
If Zion does play, who are we pairing with him? Because I, for one, have loved the Zion and Lonzo Ball connection since the two have played together. Lonzo has been tremendous from a DFS standpoint. There was a stretch where he scored 50-plus fantasy points in 10 straight games. And I remember that stretch, I played him in every game, and he was 10% or less. Is Lonzo someone that you're pairing with Zion? Do you like Brandon Ingram? How are you approaching New Orleans and Utah for that matter as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of good plays here. Small forward's another tough spot because on FanDuel, you're probably going to take one of LeBron or Kawhi, and you're probably going to take Kawhi at the cheaper price. And then after that, I mean, Ingles at 5,500, I don't love. He'll be in the starting lineup, but still. And then even when you go further down, there's not much there. So I could see even though we have seen Ingram's numbers go down with Williamson in the lineup. I mean, he's 7,300. It's not a bad price on FanDuel. So I could see people having that narrative in their head and going away. But we haven't seen big games from him. A point guard, though, there's some good, cheaper options, which might lead to Ball being low owned on FanDuel. I think he's going to be more highly owned on DraftKings, especially with this ability to put up the double-double, triple-double. I mean, he's 7,900 on FanDuel, but you got Mike Conley at 5,700. Right. I mean, he's going to be a popular play. Reggie Jackson at 3,800. I mean, Patrick Beverley was not at shoot-around today. Even if Beverley plays, Jackson's going to run the second unit with no Lou Williams and no Montrezl Harrell. And we know he's not afraid to shoot. It's kind of hard not to play Reggie Jackson at that price. Right. I mentioned Caruso before at 3,500. So you might actually get Ball a little bit lower owned because I think people are going to try and save money at the point guard position tonight on FanDuel because you got Paul George at shooting guard that I think almost everyone's going to play. You can make a case for Holiday at 8,300. Donovan Mitchell's a good play. Bogdanovic is out. We've seen his usage rate go up. Shooting guard, there's a lot of options on FanDuel. That you got Paul George. I don't think many people are going to pay 8,300 for Drew Holiday, so that's something to take note of in tournaments. Donovan Mitchell 72. Jordan Clarkson is 4,300. Clarkson gets a boost too with no Bogdanovic. I mean, he's going to run that second unit. I could see him playing, big minutes and taking a lot of shots. I mentioned Danny Green before, so there's a lot of options at the shooting guard position tonight on FanDuel.
Yeah, I think Reggie Jackson on FanDuel, I think you bring up a good point, might be the best salary saver on the entire slate because we could be looking at, 15 shot attempts from Reggie Jackson just off the bench, considering who's there and who's not, especially if he's, running the second unit with Joakim Noah and Landry Shamet. So I love that call. Let's shift our attention to some wagering, shall we? I mean, we've talked ad nauseum here at Fantasy Alarm. I think it's been a thing throughout the sports industry. Who is getting that 8th seed in the West? And DK Sportsbook still has Memphis as the favorites. You bring up Portland, has a really tough schedule, and the Pelicans plus 300. I mean, if we get a full 8 games of Zion, who knows? Are we buying into the Memphis Grizzlies as the 8 seed, or do you think the Pelicans or Trailblazers, or the others who aren't as close to that 8th seed could sneak in? Or I think Memphis pretty much has a stranglehold as long as they win that first game against Portland, because that could change all the momentum.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Memphis now too. I mean, they have a lot of things in their favor. I believe that they play Portland and then the Pelicans the third game, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Let's pull up the schedule.
I had the schedules written somewhere. I don't know. I got 75 papers around here.
So it's Portland. San Antonio and New Orleans.
Okay, yeah, so they played 2 of their first 3 games against those teams, which are going to be key. But look, they have the advantage here because what's the worst case scenario is, all right, they play a playing game, someone's within 3.5, they still have to lose twice.
Right.
So they have the advantage. I think the Pelicans will wind up in that playing game. Again, I really want it all off season. I said Portland. I like Nurkic coming back, Collins coming back. Lillard is a guy that, can take over a game. We've seen him have a 61-point game this year, 60 points. He had a stretch where he was unbelievable, unstoppable. They have experience of making the Western Conference Finals last year. That schedule is difficult, though, man, when I break it down. And, the other factor is, again, we just don't know what some of these teams, what the motivation is.
Right.
I think it was Memphis. Doesn't Memphis have Boston and Milwaukee to close? If I'm not mistaken,
Memphis has. I just pulled up the Portland schedule just to read off. So let's get back to Memphis to close.
Boston, Milwaukee, right?
They have Toronto, Boston, Milwaukee for their final 3 games.
Okay. So at that point, what's the motivation? Boston's got Kemba Walker who's dealing with this. They got to get him healthy. They might have a 3 seed locked up, and there's no home court, so we don't know. Milwaukee's going to have no need in that final game at all. There's no way. They're going to lock up the top seed. Their starters might play, 20 minutes, 25? Maybe they sit them out?
Maybe.
So that's big for a team like Memphis. So, I lean towards Memphis right now. I know a lot of people are rooting for the Pelicans, but they would have to beat Memphis twice. And Portland, I just think their schedule is so tough. So I would lean towards Memphis right now.
That schedule that you are alluding to opens up Memphis, Boston, Houston, Denver, Clippers. The first 5 games is hell for Portland. But
now, the thing is, though, like Denver, I heard Malone say his goal is just to kind of get the team to the playoffs, like healthy and stuff. Right. So that's the factor. It's like Portland's got so much to play for. All these teams, it's basically a playoff game every time out, where it's not the same for the other teams, but still, we're trying to figure out what the motivation is for each of these teams. It's kind of difficult at this point.
All right, so let's move over since we have our 8th seed, because I really like Portland, and I think I agree with the fact that they give the most problems to any team. I mean, the Lakers, let's face it, they'll be the 8th seed playing the Lakers.
I mean, think about that. The Lakers could play Portland in the first round while Milwaukee is going to play the Nets. I mean, really, you talk about a disparity? It's not even close.
So that's a perfect segue into my next question when we talk about the finals, because I think you and I have both been on the record on the Clippers bandwagon all year long, because I know you have and I know I have. I am definitely worried about the Clippers if they cannot get Montrezl Harrell back by the time the postseason. I mean, all indications are he's going to be back, but we also don't know the severity of why he left. We also don't know how Patrick Beverley. There's a lot of question marks currently around the Clippers. So as of now, I mean, it's a crash course for the Bucks Lakers in the finals. I mean, they're plus 310 to make the finals, plus 350 Bucks Clippers is the next on DK Sportsbook. Do you have Bucks Lakers currently, or are you still holding on to your Clippers bandwagon?
Still leaning towards the Clippers. I do get scared betting against LeBron James.
Right.
And especially if Anthony Davis is healthy. But, I mean, the Clippers, to me, are still the deepest team. And it sounds like Harrell will be back. I mean, Beverly is back. The concern is, obviously, they've had practices with only 10 guys. They're going to have to assimilate quickly. They have not had their starting lineup together often this year. So that could be a factor. But they have taken 2 or 3 from the Lakers this year. I just think they're a deeper team. We've seen what Kawhi Leonard could do in the postseason, carrying a team. So I still lean towards them. But, yeah, I mean, there has to be some concern. But, hopefully that number moves in a better direction then. And you can jump on it if you already haven't done it. But, yeah, I mean, there has to be a little bit of a concern at this point.
I think if Portland sneaks into the postseason as the 8th seed, I would feel a lot more comfortable with the Clippers, knowing the Lakers are going to probably play 6 tough games against Portland. I mean, at full strength, I could see that series going 6. I think the Clippers could be a lot more rested. I know we talk about rest. They've all been resting for an extended period of time, but I do think that matters if the Trailblazers do make it into the postseason. Do we have any sneaky conference winners? I know we all think, the Bucks are pretty runaway favorite in the East as long as Eric Bledsoe comes back and recovers and he's all good returning from COVID. I think we all have the inkling the Lakers or the Clippers are out west. It's one of the two. Do you have anything sneaky in either conference that you could see? You know what? I think that this team poses a problem for one of those top 3 contenders.
Yeah, I mean, I would look to the Celtics and Sixers in the East, and maybe I think the Celtics +7, +800, depending on where you are. What you could do with that then is put the money on them to win the Eastern Conference and say they get there and play the Bucks, hedge it, and then put money on the Bucks. So you win. So that's, I think, the key is kind of picking that team you think could get to the Eastern Conference Finals. You hope they get there, and then you can hedge the other side. Kemba Walker's knee is a little bit of a concern, but right. I think Boston's a good team, a team that maybe can slow down Giannis a little bit. Eric Bledsoe's already been ruled out for the game on Friday, as he has been slow to come back from COVID-19. So I don't know. I think Milwaukee is a little vulnerable. I think they can be picked off. So Philly is the interesting team. We've seen a lot of buzz on them. It sounds like Joel Embiid will be good to go. Was dealing with the calf injury. They moved Ben Simmons around more to the point power forward there. So that's a team that obviously it seems like there's been chemistry issues this year. They've just been absolutely atrocious on the road and only 2 losses at home. I don't know what that means for the bubble, though. I'm trying to figure that out. But those are 2 teams that I think I would look at and put money on them to make the Eastern Conference Finals. And then if they get there, you could hedge with the other side, whoever they face.
I mean, that's got to be the road. I've been thinking about the same thing because, like you said, at 29-2 in Philly, you think if they were to ever get a home court advantage in any series, they're not going to lose. But 10-24 on the road is super concerning, and they're in Orlando. Like they're not very close to Philly. If Ben Simmons starts taking threes, I mean, I think the COVID is getting to his head. I agree with Boston, and I think there's been some buzz around Toronto, like Kendrick Perkins out on ESPN saying that they're going to come out of the East. I think that's crazy. I don't think they have nearly enough firepower to match up with Milwaukee to stop anyone, to stop Giannis or Jason Tatum for that matter. So I do agree with Boston. Out West, nobody, right? It's just LA or LA.
Yeah, I mean, I know Houston, I think, is the 4th favorite, but they just really need to click on all cylinders offensively with the way that team is constructed with no size up front. But yeah, look, to me, if we don't get Clippers, Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, it's a disappointment.
I mean, that's definitely safe, a safe thing to say. I went on the record with John in a live stream earlier. If I were to pick someone, I would go Nuggets. You do need that star power in the postseason. And last year, in like 16-game sample, we saw Nikola Jokic average 25, 10, and 8, shooting like 60% from the field. So I think it could be in recent memory, if we're talking about like one guy with a good supporting cast surrounding him to make push the NBA Finals, I think of Dirk in 2010. Literally like Dirk and then a cast of good players. No one like tremendous. That kind of reminds me of this Nuggets team, a really, really deep Nuggets team, and with Jokic as their star. So skinny Jokic to the moon. Adam, anything else at all heading into the season? I mean, we're going to get 8 games from each team, and then we're going to see the postseason. What are your thoughts on the secondary bubble? Do you think that ever percolates where we get the 8 worst teams meeting in Chicago? I don't know if you heard that. It's 8 teams that didn't make the postseason. Do you have any interest in that?
No, and neither does Golden State. You think Steph Curry and Klay Thompson want to go to that garbage? There's no way. I just don't see it. There's no need for it.
Anything else before we get out of here?
No, I'm just looking forward to the NBA being back, and watching these first couple of days are going to be key too, because you see the over/under totals are pretty low. That Pelicans one is climbed, man,
Yeah.
like crazy. So I'm just not sure what to do with those over/under totals yet, because it's such a long layoff. It's a different court that they're not used to, even though they have done some scrimmages in there. It's just I don't know. I'm not sure on the totals. I'm kind of backing off the totals for now until I see a couple of days of basketball there.
I mean, 228, right? If you want to just talk about it a little bit before we get out of here, I think that's too high for teams that haven't played since March. I mean, and plus, like, what is the reasoning that we saw a 5.5 point jump? Like, does Zion returning, who he also hasn't played in a little while, at least even practiced, does that really move the needle that much for you? I mean, Utah is not a fast tempo team. And like you said, there has been good battles, but I've seen a lot of people thinking that this is going to be AAU style at the start, because there are a lot of teams looking to just get some run in. Like Utah has a playoff spot secured. I know they're, jockeying for position. They're currently the 4 seed. So they have a lot to play for. I mean, they would technically be a home team currently in the postseason. I would take the under in both games. I want to go on the record. I know you said you don't want to touch lines. I would go under. I see Lakers Clippers at 219.5 right now. I would go the under in that game as well. I think that game is going to be super slow paced.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I really don't know. I think the Pelicans, my guess is people are just starting to look at their history and all the high scoring games and bringing that total up. I don't know. I don't know. Understand why it keeps going up the way it is. I mean, we could be wrong. They could come out high paced,
right?
Hitting shots, but I'm not sure. I just don't know. I mean, the 4-month layoff. I know the Pelicans played well in 3 scrimmages, but again, Zion wasn't there. They do have some youth, some younger players that might help them, but I just really don't have a good feel on the totals right now.
Well, Adam, thanks as always, brother. And I, for one, am so excited that the NBA is back. For Adam, I'm James. We'll catch you next time. And that was a Howard Bender line.